Today, we are creating a small, simple app called Humanoid, demonstrating how we can initialize a for each loop. As you can see, I have created a class called Human. It's public, so it can be accessed and initialized and created in other classes as well. We create some properties. The first one is first name with a getter and setter, which is called getSet in C#. We created a second property called last name. Now we're going to create a property called age, and we're going to do it kind of differently than the previous two ones. We created a public integer called age, and we're going to refer it to the private property called age without the capital A. It's doing exactly the same thing as we've done with the first and last name. The only thing we do is we are referring to the private property called age instead of the age itself with the capital A. So let's create another property called city. So the city where this human is living. So let's create this human. We're gonna create a list of 3 humans. The first one, well, no, let's call it 3 people, of course. So we create our first human. We gotta give it a realistic, readable variable name called first human. So now we have initialized the first human, and now we're gonna set the properties. So we need to refer to the first human, and we're gonna assign Johnny to the first name of that first human. And now the last name, which is called Dublin. So this is Johnny Dublin. We're gonna assign his age. That will be 23. Yeah, that's a good age. Now his city. Where is he living? Well, let's say he lives in New York. New York City would be better. Yeah. So we're going to create constructors. What a constructor is the way you initialize or create the object. We can do it in different ways. In this way, you see, we create a constructor called human. We don't have to pass any variables or parameters during the initialization. So we can create another constructor which needs parameters to pass to create a human. In this case, we're gonna pass 4 variables. That's called first name, last name, age, and city. And we are going to assign those parameters to the properties inside the human class. So in this case, the first name property is assigned from the variable that we have just passed through the constructor. We have done the same thing with the last name, and we're also going to do the same thing with the age and city. So in this way, this is a city, of course. So let's go back to program.cs. Now we are going to create the second human, also a readable variable name, human. And as you see, This constructor, this way of initializing a human is also possible, and then we have to assign the values to the properties the same way as we have done above, but we're gonna do it differently. We're gonna pass the variables values through the constructor. So in this case, the first name is Debbie, second name is Carlton, age is 19, pretty young girl. The city, well, let's call it New Jersey. We're gonna copy and paste and call the third human just third human, so it's a readable variable name. Call it Charlie. Yeah. Let's keep the last name the same as Debbie Carlton, and let's make him the brother of Debbie, 21 years old, living in the same city. Yeah. Now we're gonna create a for each loop. I think I forgot something. So we have a for each human in, and now I forgot something. That's creating a list and putting all those humans that I've just created above inside the list. So we initialize a list. So a list of humans called humans. So I'm creating a new list. I gotta import a package. It's called system collections.generic. So we say humans, add the first human. You gotta add this first human object, the second one, and also the third one. Yeah. So right now we can loop through the humans list. We say for each human in humans. It's pretty easy. We say we're gonna write a line which is called console.writeLine. So you can see it in your console. You run this application. So we say the first parameter, the second parameter. You see it starts with 0. Is the third parameter old. So this is the first name. The 0 is the first name. The 1 is the last name. Is 2 is the age. Living in 3, that's the city. Now we're gonna pass the values. So we say the first name, like I said, is first name. The first one is, you see, it's first name. The second one over here, the 1 is the last name. The third one before old is age. So we say for each human the age, and then we say human.city. First name, last name, age, old, living in city. So now we're going to run the application. Oh, I forgot something. I need to write down console read. So hold on, running. Yeah, come on. So right now we are going to create a for loop, which is almost the same thing as a for each loop, but we do it kind of differently. A for loop needs 3 parameters in this case, which is the variable initialization. As you see, the integer I starts with a 0. The second one is already conditions. The third one, the steps it makes after every loop, or at the end of every loop. So in this case, we say as long as I is smaller than the total amount of elements existing in the list of humans, we're doing that by writing down humans.count. If you roll over with your mouse, no, it's gonna, yeah. Well, in this case, we say incremented by 1, I plus plus. So after the first loop, the value of I will be 1. So like I said, we're doing the same thing as we've done in the for each loop, inside the for each loop bracket. one thing we gotta remember is that arrays and lists always start with 0. Um, so when you're trying to index a list or array, it starts with 0. That's why I started the initialization of this for loop by 1. 0. So as you can see, the 3 lines have been printed out. So it's Johnny Dublin, Debbie Carlton, and Charlie Carlton. Just like I wanted. It looped through the whole humans list containing 3 humans, and that's it. That's how for each loop works.